I still remember the day it all started like it stuck in my head on loop. I was sitting in my little cubicle at what felt like the usual grind, eyes glued to 3 different spreadsheets, typing up the internal monthly report that no one really reads but somehow everyone depends on. It was supposed to be straightforward. Gather the numbers, make sure they add up, highlight any weird dips or spikes. Simple enough. But then my boss, Carla, popped her head in. You know that kind of look someone gets when they're trying not to show how stressed they are but totally failing? That was her. She was pacing a little too fast for an office and kept fiddling with her phone. When she finally said my name, I had a bad feeling. Hey, can I grab you for a sec? She said, voice low. I followed her into the small meeting room nearby. As soon as the door shut behind me, Carla didn't waste any time. She pulled up the latest performance numbers on her tablet, her brow furrowed deep enough to suggest some serious worry. Look, she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. These reports, they're not exactly showing us in the best light. The execs are breathing down my neck, and honestly, I can't afford any hiccups right now. I nodded, not sure where this was going. She lowered her voice and leaned in. So what I need is, well, some adjustments. Nothing crazy, just a little tweak here and there to make us look a bit stronger. You know, make the numbers more favorable. I blinked. Adjustments. Carla shrugged like it was no big deal. Just nudge a few figures up, maybe smooth out some dips. Officially, the report's accurate enough. Everyone understands that sometimes data needs a bit of interpretation. I remember feeling this weird knot tighten in my stomach. It wasn't like she outright told me to lie, and it wasn't anything illegal per se, but it was definitely bending the truth, manipulating the data so that it painted a better picture than reality deserved. Carla, I don't know, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. That doesn't really feel right. What if someone actually looks into it? What if it causes worse problems down the line? She gave me this tired, almost pleading look. Listen, I get it. But honestly, if we can't show some solid numbers, the department's budget's on the chopping block. You think I want to do this? It's just how things work sometimes. Just help me out here. You're the one who knows the numbers best. And just like that, the weight of the situation pressed down on me. I realized I wasn't just dealing with some minor ethical fuzziness. I was being asked to help cover up a bigger problem, to make a report that was supposed to be an honest snapshot into a glossy sales brochure. But here's the thing. I'm not the kind of person who can just nod and go along because it's easier. I've always believed that if you start cutting corners, you end up in a mess that's harder to clean up later. Still, confronting Carla head-on felt dangerous. She was my boss and there was a lot riding on this. For a moment I just sat there, staring at the tablet, then back at her, knowing that whatever I did next would set the tone for everything that followed. I remember thinking, okay, I can't just say no and walk away. But I can't just fudge the numbers either. There has to be a smarter way to handle this. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't going to win this by confrontation or silence. I needed to play it clever, to find a way to let the truth sink the ship instead of having to fix the ship myself. So with that pressing weight on me and a plan starting to form in the back of my mind, I nodded slowly. All right, Carla. I'll see what I can do. Little did she know, I wasn't about to help make the deception easier. I was going to make sure it unraveled. So when my boss first asked me to fudge the numbers, I'll admit my first instinct was panic. I mean, what else could I do? It wasn't just about a mistake or a slip-up. This was deliberate. But I also knew that outright refusing or confronting him head-on in the heat of the moment might backfire badly. I had to be smart about it, play it close to the chest. I spent that afternoon drafting my report like I always did, by the book, no changes, no manipulation. As I entered the final figures, I felt a quiet knot in my stomach, knowing they weren't what my boss wanted to see. But I kept telling myself, honesty first, consequences later. Then I hit reply on his email, and here's the part that felt like my lifeline. I CC'd him directly on everything. Every email, every draft, every calculation I shared went not just to him but also was timestamped and documented in the thread. Kind of like I was building a paper trail, only digital. Why did I do that? Honestly, it was a mix of fear and foresight. If I did what he asked, I'd be tying myself to this lie. And if anyone else found out, it'd be me taking the fall. But by sending the true numbers and keeping him in the loop, I made sure there was no way he could claim ignorance later. It was like having silent witnesses to the whole thing. Unseen but undeniable proof that I hadn't played along. I also backed up every email outside our system, saved screenshots, and kept a personal log of every interaction related to this report. I wasn't trying to dig up dirt or get revenge just yet. Truth be told, I was scared about what might happen next. But deep down, I felt a sliver of control return, knowing that no matter how this went down, I had protected myself from being the one blamed if things unraveled. The whole process felt like walking a tightrope. I was doing what I was told to report, but on my own terms and with my own safeguards in place. I reminded myself to stay calm, keep emotions out of it, and focus on facts. Each time I double-checked the data, printed out the emails, or copied a file somewhere safe, I felt a little more ready for whatever fallout would come. Looking back, I realized that moment was less about standing up loud and proud, and more about quietly refusing to be part of something wrong while setting the stage to let the truth do its own talking. It was me keeping my integrity intact but also playing the long game to make sure the whole story could come out without me getting dragged under. And sure enough, it wasn't long before the cracks started showing. Because once the real numbers were in, there was no hiding the difference between my careful, accurate report and the version my boss was insisting on. But that's when everything really started to boil over. And I realized just how powerful my quiet strategy had become. I remember the moment leadership called me into the conference room felt like walking onto a stage with a spotlight glaring right at me, and not in a good way. The boss had been rattled ever since the quarterly numbers started raising eyebrows upstairs. The higher-ups weren't buying the rosy reports anymore. And naturally, they wanted answers. And guess who got dragged into the middle of it? Yeah, me. When I sat down, the boss gave me this look like I was about to confess to some grand conspiracy. He didn't waste time. There must be some misunderstanding here, he said, his voice smooth but defensive. Let's just say there's a chance that some of the report interpretations weren't handled correctly. Maybe some numbers were misread or misreported. Honestly, hearing him try to twist things right in front of me made my stomach churn. It felt like he was throwing me under the bus to save himself. But I wasn't about to let that slide. I knew exactly what was going on, and I wasn't going to let the truth get buried in his half-truths. I stayed calm and told them, if there's a misunderstanding, I'd like to clear it up. I've kept detailed logs and original data files for every report I've submitted. At that moment, I could see the boss's confidence flicker. Maybe he was hoping everyone would just take his word and move on. Pulling up my laptop, I walked them through the documentation I had. Timestamps on every saved file, email threads where the boss had asked for changes, and even screen captures showing the original figures he had insisted be altered. This wasn't hearsay. It was a clear chain of evidence that laid everything out plainly. I remember watching the expressions around the table shift from confusion to realization. The boss's story about misunderstandings started to unravel right there, piece by piece. He tried once more to deflect, saying that maybe I had misunderstood his instructions. But the emails directly contradicted that claim. The proof was too concrete, too tight. No amount of spin could twist those records. The leadership team nodded slowly, appreciation clear in their eyes. Not just for the truth, but for the way I handled the whole mess without flipping the table or turning it into a personal battle. I was honest, clear, and had the receipts to back it up. That day, the boss's attempt to shift blame didn't just fail. It backfired spectacularly, planting seeds of doubt about his ethics and management style that would grow fast. And as I watched that unraveling begin, I realized this was just the start of a bigger reckoning. With the truth exposed through documented proof, the story moves toward the resolution of the boss's downfall. So here's the thing about how I handled the fallout. I never shouted, never stormed out dramatically or threw accusations around like confetti. Honestly, it might sound anticlimactic, but that's exactly how I wanted it to be. I didn't want to be the loudest voice in the room, or the one stirring up chaos. I just wanted the truth to do its own work. And well, it did. After I handed in the corrected reports, the ones that didn't gloss over the shady numbers or hide the real story, I took a deep breath and stepped back. I let the documents sit where they could be seen, where they could be scrutinized. I knew the truth in those pages was strong enough to stand on its own, so I didn't feel the need to push or demand immediate action. At first, there was a lot of nervous energy behind the scenes. Whispers turned into tense meetings. The higher-ups started connecting the dots, the inconsistencies, the pressure. the sudden insistence from my boss on those questionable adjustments. Slowly but surely, the company's internal audit team stepped in. And I didn't have to be the one leading that charge. I had already done my part by being honest and thorough. What amazed me was how quickly the truth unraveled everything. No grand accusations or public outbursts. Just cold, hard facts that didn't add up. The board didn't want to drag the drama publicly. It was bad for their image. So their solution was to quietly ask my boss to step down, to resign before things got muddy or more damaging. I remember hearing about it from a colleague, the way she said it as if it was just another day at the office. My boss was gone. No dramatic exit interview, no angry confrontation. Just a quiet, polite farewell. And honestly, watching that happen without me having to raise a finger or shout, "I told you so," felt incredibly empowering. It was like I'd set this whole thing in motion just by standing firm and letting the truth sink the ship on its own. What really sticks with me about that time is how powerful patience and integrity can be. It's tempting to want justice served with a bang, to be loud, visible, and even vindictive. But sometimes the strongest move is simply holding on to your principles, doing your job well, and letting everyone else see for themselves what's what. I didn't need to be a hero or a whistleblower in the traditional sense. I was just a person who refused to compromise on honesty, even when it would have been easier to look the other way. And in the end, that quiet resilience made all the difference. So yeah, no dramatic showdown, no fiery speeches or explosive revelations. Just truth, patience, and the eventual unraveling of deception without raising my voice once. And that, honestly, felt like the most satisfying kind of victory.